What's up guys, here's another how-to guide. This time we're going to be working with realistic noses. So far we've done drawing out a proportional face, figuring out the guidelines for that, and we did a realistic eye and adding shading and making that realistic. Now we're working with noses, which are difficult because there's not a lot of definite lines. It's more so with shading and value, but we're going to try and give you as much step-by-step guide as we can. We're going to start off with a front view nose. This is going to be a really generic nose. Starting off with the middle circle here. It's going to be the front of the nose. And then we're going to do two overlapping circles on each side. Those are going to be the side of the nose and where the nostrils are going to go. The two side circles are going to be just a little bit smaller than that first circle we started with. That's going to be where your nostrils are. After you have your three circles on there, we're going to draw in the openings of the nostrils. And those are going to be two shaped like teardrops turned on their side. So go to the bottom of both of those circles and flip sides each time with that teardrop shape. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to shade in those teardrop shapes. That's the opening of the nostrils, and those are going to be very dark. Then I'm going to darken the very bottom of the first circle. That's the area on the nose that recedes all the way back furthest on the face. And that's going to be really, really dark. I'm going to darken that line and curve them out at the ends a little bit. And then after I've added that, I'm going to go to the outer edges of both of the small circles and darken those areas. That's going to be the very outer edge of the two nostrils. From there, I'm going to erase my initial guidelines, but I'm going to leave the top 2 points where the circles intersect, the two outer circles intersect the main circle. And then we're just going to go in and start adding the shading and really define out the shape of the nose. So like I said at the beginning, there's not a lot of definite lines that you see in the nose. It's mainly shading. So from here, we're going to take it as if we are shading 3 different areas that are very sphere-like. So remember, anytime there's a change of direction, there needs to be a change of value. So I'm going to darken the outer edges, lighten as it would round in. And I'm going to smooth that out, smooth my charcoal out. But think of these as round objects and how the light would hit those round objects. It would darken as it would go back. As it's coming toward the light, which we have a front light on it, it was starting to lighten up. I'm going to darken the outside where the bridges of the nose would go. And I'm going to darken down where those circles were initially intersecting, because it would dip in on the face there as well. Smoothing out my shading to give it a more realistic look. But just remember, every change of direction, you need to change the value. It needs to darken, it needs to lighten. You need to think about where the light would be hitting on the nose. So I'm going to start with the tip of the nose now. Treat that as if it was a sphere coming out at us. Smoothing out my edges. And like I said, it's hard to really give you an exact step-by-step. The best thing to do if you're looking at drawing a nose and make it realistic is look at a mirror as you're drawing. Look at your own nose and see how the light is hitting and changing. We're going to add a dark area here, because not only is that part of the nose coming out at us, towards the bottom edges of the nose, the bottom edge of the nostril, and the tip, it's going to start receding back towards the face. And again, when it changes direction, it has to change value. So all this area will start going away from the light, and you need to make a line of dark towards the bottom of those 3 circles that we would have started with. And I'm going to darken that out here, smooth that out, and you're starting to get the feeling of the different shadows. It's starting to define some of the shape of the nose. From here, I'm just adding more shadows. I'm thinking about where light would hit, where it would not, where there would be highlights versus shadows. I'm also going to need to go back in and darken what I first started with, because as you add more shading, you'll notice that what you started at as dark will need to go back and be darker, because there's more to compare it to as you're shading more in. You'll notice as you start shading, every little bit that you change will change the shape of that nose. Where you change the area on a highlight, where you change the area on a shadow, will help give that nose more of a shape, will be more defined. I'm going to darken in the bridges of the nose and a little bit more around the face to give it more realistic feel. That part of the nose would start receding back towards the face. I'm blending out, smoothing out what I'm shading. I'm using charcoal if you're at home. If you're using pencil, this is where you could use a pencil, a blender, a tissue, your hands, any of those materials you have, just to add definition to the nose. And like I said, this is a very generic nose. Obviously, noses come in all different shapes and sizes. And the best thing to do to get the most realistic version of a nose is to look and draw at it in a mirror so you can really see all those highlights and darks. And now we're going to transition from the front view to the side profile view of a nose. We're going to start it off the same way we did the front view. Start with that main larger circle and one smaller circle to the side that overlaps. And because it's a side view, these are the only two circles we're going to need. We're not going to see that third nostril because it's a profile view. So we're going to draw in the nostril here. We're going to follow the shape of that second circle to the outside, and then we're going to go from that shape, from that curve, to that sideways teardrop again. And I'm going to shade that in, and there's our nostril with the opening shaded in. We're going to draw out the shape of the nose, the profile view. So I'm going to go out, curve back in, follow the shape of that initial circle as our guide. And then from there, I'm going to erase away those same guidelines we didn't need in the front view, leaving that top intersection of the two circles, because that's where we know we'll need to darken in. And I'm going to clean everything up a little bit and get ready to go back and add the shading in. And from here, now we're going and doing the same steps that we did in the front view tutorial. We're darkening in areas, we're adding shadows, darkening where the bridge of the nose is, where the nose dips down at the top of the nostril and comes down, darken, smoothing out your shading, adding the darks where the dark need to be. And like I said, the best way to get a really good feeling of where the light needs to be hitting, where the shadows are hitting, is to look at a mirror or look at an actual photo and shade and draw from that. This is just, like I said, a very generic nose, just to kind of help you get started, get thinking about where highlights need to be, where shadows need to be, and to get you going in the right direction. Always remember, when you're shading, when you're making something look realistic, anytime there's a change in direction, there needs to be a change in value. The light will hit different in different areas. And you also see me going back here and darkening those initial shadows that I started with, because now that I have more things shaded on the nose, you see that things need to be darker. Look at making some of your dark areas darker, your light areas lighter, just to add more contrast and make it even more realistic. So just like in the eye tutorial, I'm using the same materials, a vine charcoal in the lighter areas, compressed charcoal in the darker areas, a kneaded eraser to clean things up, and just smoothing things out with my hand. Use these steps to get a realistic front and side view nose.